Josh Kerpan is back, and today we're going to talk to him about how people help us go farther than we could on our own.
We all only have 24 hours in a day. So it doesn't matter how good we are, we can only expand that value we create in the world through leveraging other people. You're going to need to add people to grow, and people are one of the three critical elements of success. Most owners see people as a necessary evil versus the key that can literally unlock them from the entrepreneurial trap.
We're also going to talk to him about how to incentivize people.
The idea of having enough money is different for everybody, but money is a dopamine-based reward system. You will always need more and more and more to be satisfied, right? So if you are recruiting people and retaining people based on money, you've only got so much to give, and they're always going to want more and more and more.
And how to lead ourselves.
The other idea is the idea of a keystone habit. For me, it's been my morning. So I knew that I really wanted to start, some meditation, prayer, journaling, exercise, but I would get to the end of my days and realize that I hadn't got to it. The day got crazy on me. So when I started getting up in the morning and getting the three most important things done first thing in the morning, I was done the most important things before I ever left the house.
All that and more on this episode 441 of the Working Cows podcast, brought to you by Ranch Right and C90 Ocean Minerals.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
Howdy, everybody. It's Clay Conry, host of the Working Cows podcast, recorded exclusively in the Understanding Ag studios. Very excited to welcome back Josh Kerpan. He has started the process of training businesses how to manage the people that have been entrusted to them, the resources, and all of those things. He started this journey because he was successful in a goal that he had of replacing himself on his farm so that he could be freed up to pursue other streams of revenue and income for the business. And so we talked to him about the process of replacing himself last time. And now we're going to talk to him a little bit more about what he's doing on the coaching side and his philosophy of managing people and leading yourself from the from the management and personnel, from the personnel management perspective. So we'll have that conversation with Josh right after a word from our sponsor today, Ranch Right. We've all been there. You've watched the YouTube videos, you've read all the books you can find, and you've listened to some compelling episodes of various podcasts. You're in. Grazing is going to save the ranch. And while that might be true, there tends to always be a bigger problem. A bad gross margin, even with increased turnover, is still a bad gross margin. And with a bad gross margin, if you increase turnover, all you're going to do is go broke faster. Don't be a grazing zealot. Focus on profitability. After all, it's possible to outbusiness a bad grazing plan, but you will always struggle to outgraze a bad business plan. Bad business is just bad business, plain and simple. Don't get stuck there. Ranch Right has a team of financial experts who help you focus on profitability and ranching right. Use their actionable financials so you can create generational wealth and become a profitability zealot rather than a grazing zealot. If you are ready to see the power of good business and profitability, head over to ranchrightllc.com to book your free consultation now. Ranch Right. Josh, thanks for joining me again on the Working Cows podcast. Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Clay. Excited to be back.
Yeah, always good to focus on the people side of the business. And in your POP system, if you could just quickly outline that system and kind of what those all stand for, and then we'll kind of dive in on the people side of that equation.
Yep. So POPS is Peak Organizational Performance System. And it really takes into account the three elements of a successful business or organization. So that's purpose, people, and processes. So we talk quite a bit about purpose. I think a lot of people talk about purpose and why you exist and all that, and it's fun to talk about for sure. People do gloss over it, I think, a little bit when they're going through their business planning and stuff. They maybe don't take it as seriously as maybe they should. But and then the processes part of it, that's always necessary. So everybody's kind of doing some of that already, whether you're doing it well or poorly. The people part of it in the middle there is something that it seems to me probably a lot of small business owners like to avoid as much as possible, just because, it brings in a lot of emotions, a lot of different things that we don't want to deal with in the people side of things. So I thought maybe we'd focus a little bit on that today.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting ready to give a talk as we're recording here on a webinar this afternoon and talking about managing holistically, managing all of the parts. And I'm going to focus on all of the parts of the people, mental, emotional, physical, financial, relational, generational, spiritual, all those parts of the people. We need to make sure that we're managing all those parts well. And so I think the people side of it is more complex than probably any other part of the business. Would you agree with that?
I would say it's infinitely complex, right? I mean, yeah, absolutely. Everybody is different in so many different ways, and it changes all the time. So, absolutely, yeah.
What are some of the valuable tools that you have found, or that you recommend, that you use in your consulting to kind of help people understand some of those differences?
Well, let's step back first and let's just talk a little bit about first principles and why people are such an important thing. I mean, small business owners, we talked about a little bit, don't generally get into business because they want to manage a business, right? We've talked about that. And if you're any good at what you do, it grows beyond your own capability to handle your business or grow your business. And so another first principle is, I'm sure you are afflicted by the same thing that I'm afflicted by. We all only have 24 hours in a day. So it doesn't matter how good we are. We can only expand that value we create in the world through leveraging other people, right? So you're going to need to add people to grow, and people are one of the three critical elements of success, which we talked about. And my spidey sense tells me that most owners see people as a necessary evil versus the key that can literally unlock them from the entrepreneurial trap, right? So you need to grow the skills to be able to lead and manage a team, and you need
that's a powerful piece to understand, that you will, if you can't delegate, if you can't raise up people, you're never going to be as successful as you will on your own. If you're just on your own and you only ever go through business alone, you're never going to be as successful as you would if you surrounded yourself with people and raised them up to replace you at the top end of that pyramid. Is that would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I mean, where would the world be if Jeff Bezos was just trying to deliver books by himself? If you think about it, that whether you think Amazon's great or not, it has changed the way we live, and all because he's leveraged people and systems. So 100% agree. Yeah. Yeah. You absolutely need to learn to manage and lead a team. And in order to be able to do that, you need to be able to lead yourself first, which is another critical element, really, before you can worry about managing a team. I think most people don't even manage and lead themselves good enough. So the idea of trying to manage more people really overwhelms them, which is very understandable. So,
yeah, no, absolutely. Can you talk to me about some of that understanding yourself, some of that piece?
Right. Well, I mean, it is just a microcosm, really, of what it's like to manage a team. So if you want to lead yourself in a successful manner, you want to create a big, bold future. So know where you want to go. That will create a lot of excitement and energy to take you forward into the future. So that's something that we need to do in our businesses. We need to know where we're going so that our team is going to buy in. Well, we need to do that on a personal level, 100%. We need to know where we're going personally so that we get excited to follow ourselves into a big, bold future. Then you need to take action and take action just one little baby step at a time. That's going to take a lot of courage because you may not have the capability to do what you want to do right away. But taking action is key. Knowing where you want to go is the first step. You have to take action in one baby step at a time. And then you got to invest in yourself so that you can gain the competencies to do the things that you need to do, that you want to do to take you into the future, right? And then develop the 4 pillars. I call them the 4 pillars, and you touched on them before. Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. You are only going to be as good as the weakest link in that chain. And it will always be one of those elements that's probably holding you back. It's up to you to identify which one that is and bring it up to speed. It'll probably change throughout your lifetime, but always be working on developing those elements. And then, ultimately at the end of the day, we are just the sum of our habits. So it's about creating understanding our habits and how we work on habits, and then being able to create better habits on a consistent basis to go forward.
Can you give me an example of that? The idea of we're the sum of our habits. What are some of those maybe positive and or negative habits that you're talking about or thinking about there?
So we are naturally wired and programmed to run on habits, to form habits as fast as possible, and to live as much of our lives based on habits and automatic behavior as possible. The reason for this is that it frees up the rest of our mind to be able to do high level thinking and, solve and create complex problems. The problem is a lot of us don't ever get out of the habit acting phase and use our critical thinking phase. So when you go through your whole life, you think about all the things that you do without having to think about them. That's just all because of the way that you're wired. You tie your shoes and you eat and you do all these things just automatically without having to think about them. And you have the power to change any of those habits once you understand that. You can't really eliminate bad habits. You have to replace them with a better habit. That is rule number 1, because your body or your mind, the way that you're built is to run on habits. So you need to create new, better habits to overlap or overlay and kind of move your old habits to the back of the filing cabinet, because you can never just completely get rid of them. So
yeah, for sure. You mentioned. Yeah, we talked earlier a little bit, or you said that this was a microcosm of leading the whole team, right? And so I think that piece about understanding the people that you're leading and kind of their personalities and the way that they think and the way that they process information is going to be a big part of the success in this as well. Is that how do you think about that? What are some of the tools that you use?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's been a game changer for me when I started looking into personality types and some personality assessments and types, things like that. So like a DISC personality assessment is one that we've used lots, which really gives you good insight into yourself. And I think the key to understanding other people is to understanding yourself first. So when you understand how you work, then you can start taking those same principles and applying them to other people and understanding how they work. And then you really can understand your relationship a lot better. So really, really helpful. When we're bringing in people into our team, we'll use various personality assessments, and your personality is not set in stone. So you can change it as you want, but this is going to tell you how easy it is going to be to move forward with any given person or people. DISC is one of those, DISC personality assessment. Working Genius from the Table Group, that's a really handy tool to tell you why you like doing the types of work that you like doing. So when you're creating a team, the idea is that you will have as little overlap and as little underlap as possible in the tasks that need to be done. And everybody enjoys some tasks and gets really frustrated by other tasks. And when you have a good understanding of the types of tasks that everybody on your team enjoys and that everybody gets frustrated by, you can create your team better, or you can assign tasks better to have people working in their happy zones more often than their frustrating zones. We all have to do frustrating work at times, the stuff that we would rather not do. And the smaller your team is, the more of that you'll have to do, because your team is going to be made up more of generalists than of specialists. That is one of the big advantages of scaling up, in my opinion, is being able to grow a bigger team and building a team of specialists versus generalists. A Kolbe A assessment is another tool that we use quite a lot that tells you how you work best. It's very similar to the Working Genius, but when it really depends on your personality type as to how you work best. Some people, for example, are great finishers, and some people like to get a project started and then hand it off to somebody. We all have the innate sort of ability to think that everybody is sort of like us. So we think that, I'm a starter. I like starting things and then handing it off. I assume that everybody else is the same way. And so we might feel bad about handing a project off to somebody, but the reality is there's always somebody out there that loves finishing things. So if you can find the person that loves finishing your projects, you're going to make a great team. So having that information when you're putting together your team, or even if you have a team already assembled, just understanding that will help you maximize your relationships.
Yeah, certainly. Definitely have recognized that in my own life, where I'm more of a big picture guy, and I can see the vision. I can see the whole event. If that's what we're talking about, I can see the whole event and how it's going to happen and who needs to be there to make it a great event. But like thinking about, that person needs to eat and needs a place to sleep and needs, all these details, that is not my deal. And so just recognizing that about me whenever I go about trying to plan an event, it's like, okay, I'll work on the vision, I'll work on the big picture things, and I'll ask somebody to come in and help me with the details. And that is, like you said, a game changer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now you're having somebody there that complements you 100%. And when you're forming a team, I think we're all drawn to people that are like us. So, Clay might like to go and team up with another visionary or a team of visionaries, and you guys will come up with some amazing ideas and then never get anything done, right? Because you don't have any finishers in your group. So when you're putting together your team, you need to understand that you need to have that balance so that you can carry things right from the beginning to the end. And then when you're talking about communication, so you're a big picture guy, you might like to just express that big picture to somebody else, where somebody else might need to receive that in a Word document in order to be able to process it properly. Not one is not correct or wrong. It's understanding that there's people work in different ways and receive communication in different ways. Once we know that, then we can work within that.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. So I'm guessing that it would help you make hiring decisions, even you've got 3 candidates and you need that visionary to come onto the team, and 2 of them are finishers, one of them's a visionary. You're like, we got to hire the visionary, even though maybe these other guys are very well qualified, or gals. We're going to hire the visionary because that's what the team needs right now. In the future, maybe we need a finisher, and we'll circle back around to these guys as that part. I mean, that's going to play that level of a role in some of these decisions, right?
100%. I mean, it is just one piece of the puzzle. You'd never take any of these assessments and say, well, that's all we're going to base this decision off of. We're looking for right fit people. We want people that fit our core values and our culture, and they have the capabilities and competencies to accomplish the job. So maybe your Kolbe A says that this is the finisher that we need, but they don't share your core values. Well, you wouldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole because they're just going to poison your culture. But absolutely, it's a really valuable tool to use when you're putting your team together, for sure.
And do you use all of the assessments that you've talked about in every scenario, or are there some that do better at this piece than others?
So anybody that we're looking to bring onto our team, full time, we're gonna. That's a pretty specific spot. I'll use most of these tools in that hiring process. And if I don't use them in the recruitment process, I'll probably get them like the disc profile afterwards, once they're on the team, just so that I understand how they communicate best and their personality styles, just so that we can work together better. But yeah, definitely use these tools. They're relatively cheap for the value that you get out of them, for sure.
Let's take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor today, C90 Ocean Minerals.
C90 brings the power of sea energy agriculture to your farm or ranch. Using the principles discovered by Dr. Maynard Murray, C90 harnesses the power of the ocean to remineralize your soil, increase pasture nutrient density, and raise healthier livestock. C90 is perfect for all livestock and can help you unlock the genetic potential of your herd.
And don't forget, fly season is coming, so C90 offers C90 Ocean Minerals, their premium mineral salt with garlic, to help combat the flies that your animals will face in the coming days.
Available nationwide at Tractor Supply. Plus, give their team a call to learn more about their new spore-based soil biological input and help take your soil fertility to the next level. Visit c-90.com or call 717-580-1458 today. C90, a wave of nutrition. Can you talk to me about some of the ways that you think about how these pieces all fit together? You said it's not just a one piece of these. We're going to look at all of it, and is there a hierarchy that you would say, okay, they've got to fit this piece first. They got to fit core values. Then they've got to fit into this next piece. And then do you rank them in that way?
Yeah. So, the process is as such. Number one, you need an org chart or an accountability chart for your business so that you understand the different roles in your business. And really, really important to put that together to serve the needs of the business, not to serve the people who are currently in the business. So we're going to identify everything that gets done in the business, and we're going to put it into different roles and responsibilities into an org chart. And then we'll place the people we currently have into that org chart, and whatever's missing, we're going to have to recruit for those positions. Whether it's internal recruitment or external recruitment, we're going to have to fill those roles. So the org chart is what's going to tell you where the underlap is or where the holes are in our business. So we've identified that we've got a hole. We're going to go out and start recruiting. Number one thing we need to do is have our core values well defined, because that is going to tell us who is the right person. So when I talk about having right fit people, that means they are the right person in the right place. The right person essentially shares your core values, they understand your core values, and they are going to be a great cultural fit. The right place is they have the competency and the desire to undertake the responsibility of the role. So if you have those two things, you're going to have a round peg and a round hole. It's going to likely be a pretty good starting point to bring somebody onto your team. If you have, let's say, the right person, they are a great fit culturally. You are hiring a welder and this person happens to be your best friend and they're an accountant. Probably not going to be a right fit person unless they're really growth oriented and they can learn accounting or learn welding really quickly. It's possible. Likewise, if you're hiring for a welder and you find just a phenomenal welder that does not share your core values, or maybe it's just gut feeling and it doesn't feel right, that person is going to, even though they might do the job really, really well for a short time, they're going to poison your culture. And long term, there's nothing more important than the culture of your business. So identify the hole that needs to be filled and then find a right fit person using those two criteria. Within that, there's a lot of different tools to use to find those people. So in your interview process, finding your right person, you're going to structure your interviews so that you're asking questions that will give you the answers to, do they share my core values? Instead of just asking them straight up, these are our core values, do you share them? Well, everybody with half a brain is going to say, yep, that sounds good to me. Ask some questions that are going to sort of a little bit under the radar, get some answers to what if they might be a good core value or cultural fit. So that's in your interview process. And then do they have the competencies and the skills? there's a lot of different ways to do that. You might be able to tease that out in an interview process. You might need to bring them on for a trial run. That it would really depend on the position that you're hiring for. But this is where those assessments would come into play, is in the same recruitment process. So if you're hiring for, let's say, an executive assistant, and you know that you are a big picture person, you see the big picture, you're not great at following through on things, you're going to want to give a Kolbe assessment and make sure that they are a very high follow through, that they are a finisher. They're going to take your ideas through to completion. And that might be a non-negotiable for that type of position, right? Some positions are going to have more flexibility in the personality and the work style. Some are not. They're going to be, this is the type of person that I need. But those are a bunch of the tools that we use to make sure that we find right fit people and build an awesome team.
Sure. Core values are playing a big role in this discussion. Can you give me some examples of core values that you've seen as part of businesses?
Yeah. So seen a lot, and most of them are just fluffy words that you can type it into your browser. Here's some core values, and you pick some that you like the sounds of, right?
Chat GPT core value generator.
100%. The key behind every core value is that you could write 1, 2, 3 sentences or a paragraph on why that core value is important to you and your business. Okay. This is essentially who your business is. So you want to define it really well. So for us on our farm, growth is a big core value. It's very important because we're always trying new things. We're always doing things a little bit differently. And that puts pressure on people. It whenever you're growing and doing different things that you're not used to doing, it's uncomfortable. If you're not the type of person that likes that it gets too uncomfortable in those situations, you're not going to be a good fit here. It doesn't matter how good of a welder or operator you are. So that's been identified by me as really, really important in this business. You have to be growth oriented just because of the nature of the way that we in particular operate. So, for us, project oriented. We in the farm, it's all about projects. We got the biggest project of the year coming up. It's seeding. It's a 6-week sprint, and it's not about working 9 to 5. It's about getting the job done. So that's the why behind the actual core value, and that is the important part of defining your core values.
And I think that's something that you have to communicate on the front end, right? Like, hey, there's going to be a season about 6 weeks in the spring where this is what we have to do and this is what we have to do to get it done. And it's not going to look like a 9 to 5. And you need to know that. Your family needs to know that. And then we're also going to have this light at the end of the tunnel of some way of rewarding the team for their performance as a part of that. Are both of those pieces kind of something that you would communicate on the front end?
Big time. So our core values are everywhere. We have them on the website. They are on the front door of the shop. When you come into the shop, they're posted on the wall in the office. We're serious about them. We communicate them with everybody who's has any interest in being part of our farm. Not just coming on as a team member, but if you're a contractor or you're selling us stuff or buying stuff from us, this is who we are and this is how we operate. And if this makes you uncomfortable, this might not be the best place for you. But yeah, so we're communicating all that stuff on the front end, on the back end, and everywhere in between.
Talk to me a little bit about the role of compensation and maybe some of the different ways that you've seen compensation structured that seem to work well.
So that's a tricky one, and it's different wherever you go for sure. But the reality of it is money is not a good motivator once you have enough. So that's different for everybody. The idea of having enough money is different for everybody. But I'll take this and this is kind of Simon Sinek's idea of reward systems. Money is a dopamine-based reward system. So it's based on achievement, and you will always need more and more and more to be satisfied, right? So if you are recruiting people and retaining people based on money, that is probably a zero-sum game. You've only got so much to give, and they're always going to want more and more and more. So if you are
somebody else will come by and offer them more and take them from you eventually.
100%. So we try and reward as much as we can based on like serotonin, oxytocin feedback loops. That is where you are, it's more about feeling part of the family, feeling valued, respected, feeling that what you do matters, much more intrinsic rewards versus extrinsic rewards. There is a balance there for sure. Everybody needs enough money to get by, as I say, and then some extra financial bonuses can be fun to chase after, right? We all work on dopamine. It's a great motivator to some degree, but we need to find that balance when we're creating a reward system. So I look at it as reward systems more holistically than just compensation for sure.
Go ahead. Go.
Sorry, I'm pretty upfront in my hiring process about saying that we specifically do not pay at the top of the range for what people in this industry in this part of the world can make, because I believe that we all have something a lot more to offer.
Yep, for sure. Can you give me some examples of serotonin, oxytocin feedback loops and rewards that would trigger them? I mean, you talked about feeling part of the family, feeling valued, but some specific ways that you actually go about doing that, making those people feel those things?
So I suppose it would be very much about accomplishing your mission, whatever that mission is. And the fact that we're project oriented really helps us with that. So a dopamine based reward system might be something like every operator gets X dollars per acre that they seed. Whereas if we can come together as a team and do some sort of a reward as a team for accomplishing our seeding project within the specific guidelines that we want to, right? Given on a particular date or on or before a particular date with X amount of rainouts, then we're going to reward ourselves as a team by doing something as a team building, exercise or reward versus just financial based bonus. So that would be the idea, I guess, of one type of reward system we would use for delineating between the two types.
Sure. Yeah, this is analogous to the OTAs in football, right? Or I think maybe other teams have them too, but the NFL, a lot of teams have what they call OTAs, organized team activities, and they're not necessarily practice, but they are kind of building that culture, building that bond within the team. And that is a huge part of it, right? Like managing the personalities and creating relationships within the team where you don't have as much of this envy. I mean, just think about an NFL team, how many big personalities and egos they're managing, and they're trying to hold all these people together to accomplish a common mission. And where if you just let everybody's personality and ego run wild, you're going to tear the team apart. And I think the same can happen in an agricultural business as well, right? I mean, is that true in your experience?
Well, 100%. And if you look in the sports world in particular, how often does the highest paid team win the championship? Right? I mean, it does happen, but the highest paid team is, by definition, I suppose, the most highly rewarded based on a dopamine reward system. Whereas if you can create more of the serotonin and oxytocin reward systems, creating that feeling of family, it goes beyond family for sure, because you have a shared mission, but it's very much intrinsic motivation and being part of the group, being part of something bigger than yourself. You're going to accomplish a lot more than a group of individuals that are just working for themselves. So yeah, we're trying to do that all the time in our world here, just by making any bonuses that we have part of a team reward. So we have in the past had yield-based rewards. It's really difficult, especially with something like yield-based rewards, because there's so many variables. But if we tie it to yield, well, everybody on the team has a play in what our yield is, right? If somebody makes a big mistake, spraying or seeding or whatever it might be, and our yields are lower, and we miss our bonuses, then that hurts the whole team. It's not just an individual reward. So that's an example of something I've tried in the past. It's an imperfect system, and I'm constantly, part of my growth mindset, constantly trying to find better ways of creating reward systems. But It's not so much about the reward. It's more about the process and sharing in the mission and sharing in the drive towards accomplishing the mission that really is the payoff.
Yeah, talk to me about how you handle accountability within the team. Are team members allowed to, encouraged to hold each other accountable? Does it need to go vertical? Say, hey, we need to hold X individual accountable on this issue, and then you are the one dealing with that. How are you handling accountability within the team?
Yep. So there are processes in place to hold each other accountable. It happens to some degree on a day-to-day basis. For us, more particular on a week-to-week basis, where we'll discuss the previous week and what kind of went wrong. But that's more about coming together to find solutions than it is about necessarily holding one person accountable for a failure, right? Basically, we will only replace somebody. That means somebody's only going to leave here if they do not fit our core values any longer or our culture. So how we have structured our feedback loop, we have quarterly reviews with each employee, and they're a self-evaluation based review. So each employee will get, or team member will get a form to evaluate themselves and their performance. And then in that form, they also will evaluate the rest of the team's adherence, in particular to core values. So that is their opportunity to come to their supervisor, to me right now, with how their quarter's gone, how they feel they've done, and then anything else, any issues that they're having that are significant with team members, they would get brought up at that point in time between me and them, so it's not going to blow up as a team thing. And then if we see a trend happening there with any particular team member, it would be something that we would address first off one-on-one between each of the individual team members involved, and then we would come together as a group and talk it out and hash it out. But that has been something that we put in place reasonably recently that has really yielded pretty good rewards. The problem with not having those feedback systems in place is there's always little problems when you have people. There's always people problems, and those things fester, and then they become big, bad, scary problems when they do finally come out. So you want to tease those out when they're little and deal with them. It's uncomfortable. It's not really a lot of fun for anybody, but this process makes it really good. Having this employee or the team member evaluate themselves when they come in to sit down with their supervisor, to me, has been really freeing, because that's an intimidating position to be in when you're going to get evaluated or criticized essentially on your performance. Well, when you hold the power to essentially set the tone for the meeting, then it makes you a lot more comfortable. And the more comfortable we can have those meetings, the more fruitful they're going to be. And there's always space for the supervisor to step in those and say, if this particular employee or team member has missed something that they've maybe fallen short on, then that's a place where the supervisor would bring it up as a talking point, and you'd start having that discussion.
And so that trend is established by more than one member of the team saying, hey, I've noticed this about team member X, right? If team members Y and Z say, I've noticed this about team member X in the course of their review, then it's something that maybe is going to come up, and hopefully it comes up in team member X's personal review, and they say, yeah, I'm recognizing this too, and then we can all agree, yep, this is something we need to work on. Am I understanding you right?
Yeah, 100% for sure. If somebody recognizes that they're having a bit of an issue with another team member, it just opens up the conversation, and that's where it starts, right? And in having a good conversation, I think you'll probably be able to tease out pretty quickly if this is actually a long ongoing problem, or if somebody's maybe just having a bad week. But if there's a trend and there's multiple arrows pointing in the same direction, let's say, then it's probably something to deal with. And if that employee X says, yeah, I understand this has been a bit of an issue, then that's a great situation. If they are taken totally by surprise on that might be a little bit of cause for alarm. So in our business, we have a 3-strike rule. If you get 1 strike if you've been not adhering to core values, essentially. So then we'll sit down and have that discussion. Why did it happen? Here's the plan going forward to just make sure that it doesn't happen again. Because very often It might be something in their personal life. I mean, as a supervisor, as a leader, that should be your first question. If a person isn't pulling their weight or something's a little bit off, is there something wrong with them at home? Is there something going on that we can help with, right? Because that's going to be the case, especially if they've been a good valued member of the team up until that point. If you get past that point and that's not necessarily the case, and you get to where you say, well, we're having an issue with this, and here's the plan going forward, everybody in agreement. If there's ever a second strike, probably that person's going to leave on their own because they have felt that they are not a fit anymore. That's been my experience. Rarely, this system essentially has people weed themselves out, if that makes sense.
No, that's very good, very powerful, and it's a system to me that echoes Matthew chapter 18 in the way that I personally try to handle personal conflict, and that going to the person individually is the first step in that, and I really appreciate that. And I think the other part of that really sticks out to me is what you said about it may be something in their personal life, probably is something in their personal life, that seeking to understand before you seek to be understood is such a huge, huge part of just handling these personal conflicts in my experience.
Yeah, absolutely. 7 Habits, that was the first, I think, book that really opened my mind up to better communication and that principle of seeking to understand where somebody else is coming from. And then equally important is making sure that your viewpoint is understood as well. But it just, when you get into these situations where you have somebody that's not quite fitting, it becomes very emotional, especially if they've been part of your team for any time at all. If you're a small business, they're essentially part of your family. So it becomes very, very emotional. And I wanted to create a system that essentially removed as much of that emotion as possible and just made this as objective of a system as possible, so that you're not having to think, is now the time that I have to let them go? When is right? This system basically just manages itself. And like I said, when it works, it weeds out the people that are not the right fit.
Kind of where we started this conversation was talking about how people are an asset that can help us to, see the business grow. And one of the things that we talked about, maybe it's been mentioned here today even, but one of the things we talked about in the previous episode was about getting out of that entrepreneurial trap. So if you just review quickly what that entrepreneurial trap is, and then talk about how people and surrounding ourselves with the right people who are the right fit can help us to be freed from that entrepreneurial trap.
So the entrepreneurial trap is that small business owner that did not get into business because he wants to manage a business. It's because he followed maybe his passion or just something he's really good at that creates value for people. And he ends up being pretty good at it. It creates a lot of value and people want more of it. So he says, okay, no problem. I'm going to go ahead and just hire another person and I'll double my output. Well, when you A, hire the wrong person, or B, don't know how to manage people, you will not only be not doubling your output, you might be halving your output for a while because it's more work to manage somebody else than what they're producing. So even if you manage to get yourself in a half decent team, if you don't manage them well and don't have the systems in place, if you are the one having to manage them specifically day to day and thinking through every problem, solving every problem, then you are in a trap. And I think that a lot of people, entrepreneurs and small business owners, get into it because they love the idea of having the freedom of being able to do what they want on any given day, creating what they want to create. It's not about being lazy and watching soap operas afternoon. It's about not being constrained by a lot of systems and by bureaucracy. And the irony is that we need strategic systems to actually free us. Systems are freeing. Bureaucracy, not so much. So there's definitely a balance there. But without some systems, we aren't free at all. Because if we don't have any constraints or boundaries to be free from, there's no such thing as boundaries, or there's no such thing as freedom. Sorry. The definition of freedom, I suppose, would be being freed from some sort of constraint or boundary. And if those don't exist, then we can't be free. So the bottom line is, you need some systems in place, some strategic systems in place to be able to actually create freedom. Those systems are operated by people, and they are there to serve other people. So none of us are great at everything. I believe that you can't be everything, but you can be anything at any given time. So you can't be everything at any given time. You certainly can't be everything really well at any given time. So when you can identify what you do great and what you're just okay at, and the things that you downright stink at, if you just graded them 3 ways and delegated or found somebody to do the things that were most frustrating to you that you're not very good at, you are going to become so much better in the other 2/3 of your life and start creating so much more value. And that just can be replicated over and over again as you are able to build a team of specialists and get away from being more generalists, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That generalists versus specialists, and like you said, the value of a team at scale is the value created by being able to have people that are. He's not a welder and an accountant. This guy's a welder, that guy's an accountant.
Right.
and they get to focus on what they love and what they're good at, and we don't ask them to overlap unless they want to. And yep, it's just a big benefit, right?
Yeah, and I mean, in the world today, we're getting to a place where there's so many specialists that are like fractional specialists. So you can hire out your CFO. You can get Ranch Right to do your books, right? Before you just had to figure out how to do it yourself. You can get CMOs, fractional COOs. You can hire out so many of these things, admin assistants, all kinds of things virtually or even in person, just part-time. There's fractional specialists for so many of these things that we have to, a lot of us take a lot of time and energy to just become competent just so we can keep the wheels of the bus rolling, when now the opportunity is there to collaborate with these other people and these other businesses, these other specialists that will leverage our unique abilities.
Yeah, for sure. I know I missed some follow-up questions early on in this discussion, and there's other things I'm sure you want to talk about here. What are some of those things I should have asked as follow-up questions, or questions that you think, hey, this also needs to be discussed here?
Well, I think we've hit on a lot of it, Clay. I don't overly prepare when I come onto these things. I really like to just get asked questions and respond as I can kind of think through them. So I don't always give perfect answers, and I'm not perfectly prepared. So I don't have a whole lot that we missed on. I think the big key is that when we're talking about people, managing people and leading people, we need to be able to manage and lead ourselves first. We need to develop that self-esteem, that trust and confidence in ourselves that we are going to follow through on what we say is most important. A lot of us, we've got what we say our core values are, but are our actions congruent with those core values all the time, right? And your actions will always tell the outside world what your core values are. So that is just a matter of recognizing where you're not congruent with what's important in your life, and then being able to gain the competencies to reform your habits. And that's really what it's all about, because we are the sum of our habits. So that really is a topic for a whole other podcast. I think we don't have time to probably get into that here, but you need to really be able to lead yourself before you can lead others.
Yeah. My wife, I respect my wife immensely in this regard. She is a list gal. She will make a list every morning of the things that she wants to get done in the day, and go through and make it happen, and I think that's just a great discipline. One example, I think, of a small way to get started leading yourself. Are there other ones that really come to mind as far as you're just kind of those small strategies to develop that discipline over time?
Well, that's what I would say. Number one is start small, right? I suppose with the habits, and this is something that I struggled with. I've recognized this for a number of years, that I needed to build some better habits, and just really struggled with making consistent habits. A big part of that was the whole idea that it takes 21 days to build a habit, which is basically garbage. So I'd buckle down on one thing for 3 weeks, and then I'd say, okay, it's done, everything's good. And then I'd look back 2 months later and it was all gone, all that work for nothing. So it turns out there is some validity to the idea that it takes 66 days to build a habit. Obviously it would depend on the habit and the person, but that's something that you could actually aim for. And I have now found that to be somewhat true in my life. So if you can stick it out for like 2 months or a little better, you're going to have a pretty good chance of building that habit. The other idea is the idea of a keystone habit. For me, it's been my morning. So I knew that I really wanted to start some more mindfulness stuff more consistently, some meditation, prayer, journaling, exercise, a few of those really good habits that I knew I needed to do. But I would get to the end of my days and realize that I hadn't got to it. The day got crazy on me. So when I started getting up in the morning and getting the three most important things done first thing in the morning, I was done. I was done the most important things before I ever left the house. And that does so much for your confidence, sets you at ease for the rest of the day. And that has been really important, is setting that keystone habit of waking up first thing in the morning and knowing exactly what I'm going to do for that first 30 minutes or an hour, depending on how big of a hurry you're in, but making sure that you get it done. So keystone habits, start small, build confidence. Like the first thing I do in the morning is just get up and drink my big glass of water, and I'll get my body moving. Maybe it's some push-ups, or maybe it's a plank or something else. But within 5 minutes of getting out of bed, you basically have 2 or 3 wins. You start the day 2-0. That's pretty awesome. So, but make it easy.
Yep. That's very similar to mine. I've tried to adopt some Andrew Huberman type deals. And so in the morning when I'm doing my Bible reading, I try to drink about a quart of water with a little bit of sea salt in it and delay the intake of caffeine until I've been awake for at least an hour. And then we go from there. And it's made a big difference. Like I've been waking up earlier than I had been. I've been waking up earlier than I had been without an alarm for a number of weeks here. Months probably by this point. So it's just kind of interesting how some of those small things create those wins, set you up for success for the rest of the day.
100%. And then if you do it long enough, like you said, you reach automaticity where you're just doing it without thinking about it. You don't even need an alarm because your mind is set for it, right? And then if you have a few days you travel and it goes wonky, it comes back really fast because your body is so used to it. Yep.
Very good. Josh, I really appreciate your time today. Where can people go to find out more about what you're up to?
www.kznsolutions.ca. Kerpan Farms, if you want to see what's going on the farm, kerpanfarms.com, kznsolutions.ca. We've got a free ebook on there you can download now that goes into a little bit more detail on the POP system. Book a consultation. Let's just have a chat. That'd be fun. But that's the coaching side of things. Yep. You can find me on social media as well. So
very good. We'll have links to that in the show notes page for today. I'll try to find some of the tests that you mentioned as well, and personality profiles and some of those things, and link them there as well. But Josh, thanks for your time today.
Thanks for having me, Clay. It's been a blast.
Very good stuff there with Josh. Really appreciate his perspective, and look forward to continuing conversation with Josh, talking more about leading yourself and some of those things coming in the near future. Coming up next on the Working Cows podcast, we'll be talking to Blaine Jurtis and Michael Thiele of Understanding Ag about whether or not regenerative agriculture works in Canada. Okay, let's be honest. We all know it works everywhere, right? But we're going to talk to them about how they have been making it work in Canada and how they've seen it work in other northern, more harsh winter environments. So look forward to sharing that with you, coming your way real soon on another episode of the Working Cows podcast. We'll see you then.
We invite you to visit workingcows.net to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, resources from our guests, and the industry leaders who have influenced them. For more ideas on putting your cows to work for you in a more profitable way, tune in next week.